Before the final exams, our teacher gave us some practice questions that might appear on the test. He asked Ivy to share them with the class. But instead, she stood at the front of the classroom, tapping her head cutely. Oop. I'm so silly, I totally forgot what Mr. Anderson said. Sorry, guys, he's already left for vacation. Just do your best tomorrow. After the exams ended, we found out Mr. Anderson had predicted 2 major questions, worth 27 points total. The parents went absolutely crazy. They demanded the person responsible pay for ruining everyone's scores. My childhood best friend, Blake, and my brother, Mason, teamed up to blame everything on me to protect Ivy. When I confronted them, they said, Ivy just got confused, it's not like she did something terrible. Why can't you be more understanding? Angry parents pushed me around. I fell into traffic and was severely injured. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on exam day. This time, I told everyone except Blake and Mason about the questions Mr. Anderson had predicted, and I pretended not to notice. When Ivy accidentally replaced all of Blake's pens with red ones, I opened my eyes to a familiar voice. It's just a few practice questions. Who cares if she forgot them? It's not like the teacher can actually predict the real test. Exactly, we don't need them anyway. I jerked my head up and saw Blake and Mason standing there, protecting Ivy. Behind them, I looked around, students chatting nervously, parents looking anxious but hopeful. Our homeroom teacher, Miss Roberts, was gently talking to students nearby. I realized I was back outside the exam hall before I could feel relieved. Blake grabbed my arm. Willow, are you stupid or something? Did you hear what I just said? Apologize to Ivy right now. Apologize. Just moments ago, I was lying in critical condition after being hit by a car. I could still feel the intense pain. I watched Blake and Mason coldly step over my body and walk away, carefully holding Ivy in their arms while I was left alone. Rage flooded through me. I held back the urge to confront them and asked coldly, what did you just say? You don't need. Blake looked at me like I was an idiot. Did you get hurt this morning? Weren't you just complaining that Ivy forgot the practice questions? Nobody cares about a few stupid problems. Mason pushed me impatiently, telling me to apologize to Ivy. I glanced at Ivy and caught her switching out the pens in Blake's pencil case. I smirked and pretended to check my phone for the time, quickly recording the evidence. If you don't care, fine. Exam starting soon, I don't have time for this. I turned toward Miss Roberts and quickly created a new group chat on my phone. A class group without Ivy, Blake, and Mason. I typed out both major math questions Mr. Anderson had given us and hit send. The group exploded with excitement. Everyone kept thanking me. Nobody noticed or cared who was missing from the chat. Math problems worth 27 points total. They didn't want them? Fine. Plenty of other people did. Blake and Mason saw me standing with Ms. Robertson, glared at me before turning back to chat with Ivy. They even ruffled her greasy hair affectionately. I laughed quietly, excited to see Blake's face when he discovered his pens had been switched. In my past life, I'd caught Ivy doing this and called her out. But she just pouted and whined to Blake. Oh, no. It's my fault, I was so nervous. I wanted to check if you had everything. And I put the wrong pens back by mistake. I'm always so clumsy and forgetful. Good thing Willow has sharp eyes and caught it. You're not upset at me, are you? Blake wasn't actually harmed. So he easily forgave her, he even called her cute and innocent. Then he turned around and accused me of being paranoid and suspicious. Not to mention how he and Mason later threw me under the bus to protect Ivy, which led to my injury. The thing is, you don't know how much it hurts until the fire burns you. So this time, let's see if they can still be so understanding. After getting affected themselves, when it was time to enter the exam room, I was walking with my roommate when Ivy ran up to us. Willow, can you hold Blake's pencil case for a second? My shoelace came untied, I glanced at Blake and Mason behind her, and quickly stepped away from Ivy. You want to be their babysitter? That's your business, I'm not interested in holding their stuff. Just in case something goes missing later and you all blame me for it. My roommate also pulled me away in disgust. Bad luck magnet, you mess things up all the time. And now you want to ruin our exams, too? Let's go, except for those two idiots. Blake and Mason. Nobody in our class liked Ivy. She had a terrible reputation. If I'd actually taken Blake's pencil case. Once we sat down in the exam room with Blake and Mason's tempers. They'd definitely freak out when they discovered all red pens. Then Ivy would helpfully remind them of something. And I probably wouldn't even be able to finish my exam this year. Besides human proctors. They were using AI surveillance for the first time. Any suspicious movement or disruption would get you kicked out. Affecting Blake and Mason was enough. After all, they said they didn't care. I found my seat easily, soon. Blake and Mason strolled in casually. Ivy followed behind them, looking innocent. They'd barely sat down when the bell rang. The proctor walked in and started distributing test papers. The moment the papers reached each student, Blake angrily slammed his pencil case on his front desk. What the heck? Where are my pens? The next second, an alarm went off. The proctor's face darkened as she ordered both students to freeze. Within 30 seconds, the roaming supervisor entered the room to investigate what's going on. But Blake was too arrogant. Right in front of the proctors. He tried to take the pen from the student in front of him. As expected, the proctor immediately decided to remove him from the exam room. His test for this subject was voided. Blake refused to accept it. On what grounds? Do you know who my father is? The test hasn't even started yet. I was just asking to borrow a pen. How is that against the rules? I suppressed my laughter and looked down at my test paper. Security quickly arrived and escorted Blake out. The room finally returned to quiet. After confirming that during those 2 minutes and 56 seconds of chaos, no other students had communicated with each other, the proctor decided the exam would continue. I pushed down my joy and calmly worked on my test. Only after the exam ended did I turn to look at Ivy in the corner. I walked up to her and said quietly, Ivy. You know there are cameras inside and outside the exam room, right? I wonder what excuse you'll come up with this time. Ivy trembled, then started playing dumb again. Willow, what are you talking about? Blake got his test score cancelled. I feel terrible about it, but you're his childhood friend. How can you be so happy about his misfortune? I gave her a meaningful smile and said nothing more. Did she really think this wouldn't affect her? I walked out of the exam room and ran right into Blake and Mason talking. Willow, it was you. Wasn't it? Blake rushed toward me, angrily, trying to grab me. I pushed his hand away without hesitation and moved back. If you've got a problem, go to the hospital. Don't lash out at everyone you see. If you really were set up, call the police, check the security footage, and find who's responsible. Blake laughed bitterly. Stop pretending. Who else would be vicious enough to frame me besides you? I ignored him and walked toward the exit. I found Miss Roberts, got my phone back, and posted the video I'd secretly recorded to the class group chat. Blake's face changed completely when he saw it. His face twisted with rage. And without hesitation, he confronted Ivy aggressively. You dared to mess with me? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. See? You don't know pain until you get affected yourself. He used to be so protective of Ivy. Now he's ruthless, my dear brother. Mason seemed to have convinced himself to play hero, gloating as he became Ivy's white knight. He stood up for her. How could you be so harsh with Ivy? That's too much. Ivy obviously didn't mean it. You got your score cancelled because you disrupted the exam. You can't blame Ivy for that. Ivy hid behind Mason with red eyes, crying pitifully, it's all my fault. I was so focused on memorizing those poems. I just forgot, you know. I have a bad memory, I really didn't mean to. I'm not as sharp as Willow. If it were her, she definitely would have remembered to remind you. Mason immediately caught on and helped shift the blame to me. Blake, looking for someone to take his anger out on, rushed toward me without thinking. I stayed calm and spoke before he could. I know you want to thank me for helping you catch the real culprit. You're welcome. Blake froze. I turned and told Miss Roberts everything, including the video evidence I'd accidentally captured. Miss Roberts's face turned dark when Ivy slowly walked over, expecting to see me get in trouble. She was met with Miss Roberts scolding her instead. I waved goodbye to Ivy with a smile and left. How they'd handle this now wasn't up to Blake and his friends anymore. The class was thrilled about Blake's situation, especially since students from the same exam room had secretly filmed the three of them arguing. Everyone used lunch break to mock them in the group chat. The toxic trio is falling apart. They always acted high and mighty when trouble didn't affect them. Serves them right, Ivy is so manipulative. And those two still call her cute. And say her clumsiness makes them want to protect her. Gross. During our first practice exam, Ivy deliberately poured hot water on everyone's test papers. When we confronted her, Blake and Mason accused us of targeting her, and that time, our class represented the school at the city performance. He cried right before saying she accidentally damaged all the costumes. If Willow hadn't contacted backup in time, we would have embarrassed ourselves in front of everyone. I ate my noodles while watching them vent in the group chat. Ivy didn't dare say a word. Blake stayed silent, too. Only Mason kept defending Ivy. I guess this is what they call betraying the whole world for you. Wonder if he'll still be smiling when things affect him, too. After lunch break, I arrived at the exam hall entrance to find a crowd gathered. In the center, a familiar figure was yelling loudly. Stop crying! I'm asking you about my admission ticket. Where's my admission ticket? What's your brain for? All you do is cry. I stood at the periphery of the crowd, leaning against a pillar, watching the chaos unfold. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, only this time, I wasn't the one under the wheels. Mason was frantic, turning his backpack inside out. I gave it to you. I handed it to you while I was tying my shoe. Ivy, think. Ivy was sobbing, her hands trembling as she clutched a crumpled tissue. I don't know, Mason. I thought I put it in your pocket. Maybe you dropped it? Why are you yelling at me? Everyone is staring. Because the exam starts in 5 minutes. Mason's voice cracked. He wasn't the calm, protective big brother anymore, he was a drowning man. I took a slow sip of my water. I knew exactly where the ticket was. 10 minutes ago, I had seen Ivy in the bathroom. She was fixing her makeup, nervous about the math exam. She had placed Mason's admission ticket on the wet sink counter. When she washed her hands, the water soaked the paper. Instead of drying it, she had panicked, crumpled the soggy, ruined mess into a ball, and tossed it into the trash can before running out. In my past life, I would have dove into that trash can, I would have taped that ticket back together, begged the proctors, and eventually given Mason my own ticket just to stop him from crying. Now. I checked the time, 3 minutes to the bell. Willow! Mason spotted me, his eyes were wild, red-rimmed. He charged over, grabbing my shoulders. Willow, you have your ticket, right? Give it to me. I stared at him, genuinely amused. Excuse me? I need to get in there. This is the most weighted subject. If I miss this, my GPA tanks. Your grades are average anyway. You can retake the year. I can't afford to have this on my record. The audacity was breathtaking. Even Blake, who was standing nearby looking defeated after his earlier expulsion, looked shocked by Mason's demand. Mason, I said, my voice smooth and loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear, are you asking me to sacrifice my future because your cutie lost her ticket? She didn't lose it on purpose. Mason roared, shaking me, stop being selfish. I'm your brother. Hand off, I snapped, slapping his grip away. You're right, you are my brother, and you're the one who told me this morning that nobody cares about a few stupid problems. Well, nobody cares about your stupid ticket either. I turned around and walked toward the security checkpoint. Willow! If you walk through those doors, don't come home. Mason screamed behind me. I flashed my ID to the scanner, beep, valid. As the heavy doors began to close, I looked back one last time. Mason was trying to rush the guards, only to be restrained. Ivy was standing there, covering her mouth, eyes darting around to see if anyone was sympathetic to her. No one was. The doors shut. The math exam was easy, thanks to Mr. Anderson's leaked questions, which I had graciously shared with everyone but the trio. I breezed through the 27 points that stumped the uninformed. When I walked out of the hall, the atmosphere was electric, but not for everyone. Mason was sitting on the concrete steps outside, his head in his hands. Blake was smoking a cigarette nearby, looking distinctively darker. Ivy was nowhere to be seen. When Mason saw me, he didn't scream, he just looked at me with a terrifying coldness. You really did it, he whispered, you left me out there. I took my exam, I replied, adjusting my backpack. You should have taken better care of your things, or better yet, chosen better friends. Mom and Dad are here, Blake said, blowing smoke into the air. He smirked, but there was no humor in it. They're in the principal's office, they want to see us. The drive home was silent. My parents didn't yell immediately, that was worse, they waited until we were in the living room. Disqualified, my father said, tossing his jacket onto the sofa. He looked at Mason, my son, the star student, disqualified for brawling with security. It wasn't my fault. Mason pleaded, Ivy lost my ticket, and Willow refused to help. She had her ticket right there, she could have given you hers? My mother finished the sentence, her face pale. She turned to me. Willow, is that true? In the past, I would have cowered, I would have apologized for breathing wrong. Yes, I said calmly. He wanted me to fail so he could pass. I said no. He is your brother. My mother shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. You are supposed to support each other. How could you be so cold-blooded? Support? I laughed, a dry, sharp sound. Mom, where were you this morning when Blake and Mason watched me get hit by a car in my dream? Oh, right, you were comforting Ivy because she was scared of the blood. Stop talking nonsense. Father barked, we are talking about reality. Mason's transcripts are ruined. And whose fault is that? I stepped forward, looking my father in the eye. Who told him to carry Ivy's bags? Who told him to prioritize her over his own exam? You want someone to pay? Send the bill to Ivy's parents. Don't you dare bring Ivy into this, Mason snarled. She's devastated. She's toxic, I countered. Blake got kicked out because she switched his pens. You got locked out because she lost your ticket. Notice a pattern? Or are you blind? My father raised his hand to slap me. I didn't flinch, I just held up my phone. Go ahead, I said. Hit me. I'm already recording. You want to explain to the school board why you beat the daughter who actually finished her exams while coddling the son who failed? His hand froze in midair. He lowered it slowly, trembling with rage. Go to your room, I don't want to see your face. Gladly. The next day, the school was in an uproar. The group chat I had created, the Willow Tree, was buzzing. Classmate A, OMG, did you guys see the math section B? It was exactly what Willow posted. Classmate B, Willow is a god, I would have failed without those formulas. Classmate C, wait, so Blake and Mason missed the questions and the exam? LMAO. I walked through the hallways like a ghost. People nodded at me with respect. They didn't love me, but they valued what I gave them. That was safer than love. Mr. Anderson returned from his vacation 2 days later, tan and smiling, until he saw the chaos. He called me into his office immediately. Willow, he said, closing the blinds, I heard rumors that you distributed sensitive study materials. He was trying to intimidate me. He wanted to know if I had hacked his computer. I just shared the practice questions you gave us, sir, I said innocently. You asked Ivy to share them, remember? She forgot, so I did her job for her. Was I wrong to help my classmates study? His eye twitched. He couldn't admit that those practice questions were the actual exam questions he had sold to a select few wealthy parents in previous years, a scheme I had uncovered in my past life. If he punished me, he admitted the questions were identical to the test. No, he gritted out. You showed great initiative. Thank you, sir. Oh, and about Blake and Mason, it's a shame they didn't get the materials, but I guess they were too busy. I left his office with a skip in my step. The final straw wasn't the grades, it was the graduation gala. Despite their failures, Blake and Mason were rich. Their parents pulled strings, made donations, and ensured they could still walk the stage, though their honor roll status was gone. Ivy, somehow, had wormed her way back into their good graces. She had cried, fainted twice, and written them heartfelt apologies. Mason, the idiot, bought it. Blake was skeptical, but he was addicted to the drama. I wore a simple red dress to the gala. I stood alone by the punch bowl, watching the three of them. Ivy was wearing a white dress that looked suspiciously like a wedding gown. She was clinging to Mason's arm, but making eyes at Blake. She's doing it again, a voice said beside me. It was my roommate, Sarah. Doing what? Setting them up, Sarah pointed. I saw her messing with the AV system cables earlier. She's up to something. I narrowed my eyes. In the past life, the accident at the gala was a falling spotlight that nearly hit Ivy. Mason had pushed her out of the way and broken his leg. Ivy had become the tragic heroine. But this time, I walked over to the AV booth. The student running it was a guy named Dave, someone I had helped with the English exam. Hey Dave, I smiled. Mind if I check the playlist? Sure, Willow, anything for you. I scanned the setup. There was a loose cable near the heavy speaker tower looming over the stage. Ivy had loosened the bolt. It was meant to fall when the bass dropped, likely to cause a scene where she could faint into someone's arms. I didn't fix it. I moved the speaker 5 inches to the left. Directly over the spot where the student representatives, Mason and Blake, were scheduled to give their speech. 10 minutes later, the principal called them up. And now, despite a rocky semester, our former student council leaders, Mason and Blake, walked onto the stage. They looked tired. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a bitter defensiveness. Ivy stood in the front row, clutching her hands, waiting for her moment to scream and rush the stage. Mason tapped the microphone, testing. The bass from the background music kicked in, the vibration rattled the loose bolt. The heavy speaker tower swayed. Ivy saw it. She opened her mouth. This was her cue to scream watch out, and be the savior. But she hesitated. I saw it in her eyes. She calculated, if the speaker hit them, the gala would be cancelled, everyone would look at the victims, she would be the grieving friend. That was more attention than being the savior. She stayed silent. The tower snapped. Crash. It didn't hit them directly, I wasn't a murderer, but it crashed onto the stage floor right between them, shattering into heavy shrapnel. A piece of the casing flew up and sliced Mason's cheek open. The impact knocked Blake off the stage, breaking his wrist as he landed awkwardly. Panic erupted. I stood still, holding my phone. I zoomed in on Ivy. She wasn't running to help, she was checking her hair in the reflection of a window before squeezing out fake tears and running toward the cameras. The hospital waiting room was déjà vu, but this time, I wasn't the patient. My parents were yelling at the school administrators, Blake's parents were threatening lawsuits. I sat in the corner, editing the video. I had 2 clips. Ivy loosening the bolt earlier that evening, caught on the gym security camera I had hacked into, a skill I picked up in my past life while trying to clear my name. Ivy watching the tower fall, hesitating, and smiling for a split second before the impact. I walked over to the TV screen mounted on the wall of the waiting room. It was connected to the hospital's announcement system, but it had an HDMI port. I plugged in my phone. "What are you doing?" my mother snapped. "Willow, sit down." "I think you all need to see this," I said. I hit play. The grainy footage showed Ivy in her white dress, using a wrench on the speaker tower, then, the gala footage, the hesitation, the smile. The silence in the waiting room was heavier than the speaker tower. Mason, sitting with a massive bandage on his face, stared at the screen. Blake, cradling his cast, went pale. Ivy, who was sitting next to Mason holding his hand, froze. "That's that steep fake." Ivy shrieked, jumping up. "Willow made that. She hates me." "It's timestamped," I said coldly, "and Dave in the AV booth saw you near the equipment." Mason stood up slowly. The drugs made him unsteady, but the rage gave him focus. He turned to Ivy. You set that trap?" "No. Mason, I was trying to fix it. I saw it was loose." "With a wrench you brought from home?" Blake asked, his voice shaking. "In a ball gown?" Ivy backed away. "You don't understand. I wanted something to happen so we could be close again. Like when Willow got hit by the car. We were a team then." The room went dead silent. She realized what she had said. Mason looked at me. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, he actually looked at me. He saw the scars I still carried from the accident in the previous timeline, phantom pains that manifested in this one. He realized that Ivy enjoyed the disasters. She enjoyed the pain because it made her the protagonist. "Get out," Mason whispered. "Mason, baby. Get out!" He screamed, tearing the 4 drip from his arm. "Get away from me. You psycho." Ivy fled the hospital, chased by Blake's mother who looked ready to kill. The aftermath was brutal. Ivy was expelled. The video went viral, obviously. The clumsy cute girl narrative died instantly, replaced by the psycho saboteur. Her parents had to move her to a boarding school in another state to escape the harassment. Blake's wrist healed, but his ego didn't. He lost his athletic scholarship. He became quiet, withdrawn. He tried to talk to me once, to apologize. I walked past him as if he were invisible. "And Mason?" My brother dropped out of school. The scar on his face was permanent, a jagged line from his eye to his jaw. He couldn't handle the whispers. He couldn't handle the guilt. He spent his days in his room, staring at the wall. My parents tried to blame me, tried to say I should have stopped Ivy if I knew. I tried. I told them as I packed my bags for university. "I told you she was dangerous. You told me I was jealous." I zipped up my suitcase. "Where are you going?" my mother asked, weeping in the doorway. "You can't leave us. Mason is he's not well." "That's not my problem," I said, checking my reflection in the mirror. I looked strong, I looked alive. "I got a full scholarship to Stanford. My flight leaves in 3 hours. I walked past her, down the stairs, and out the front door. Mason was sitting on the porch, smoking. He looked up at me. "Willow," he croaked, "I'm sorry." I stopped. I looked at the brother who had once watched me bleed out on the pavement while holding the girl who caused it. "I know," I said, "but forgiveness is for people who make mistakes. You made a choice." I walked down the driveway, the sun warming my face. I didn't look back. The traffic on the road was heavy, but I wasn't afraid of cars anymore. I was the one driving now.